Good day and welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts because our guest today blazed trails both on the silver screen and the rugged rally tracks. He's a master of adrenaline-fueled pursuits, known for his heart-pounding role as a co-driver in the Canadian Rally Championships. From the icy challenges of the 2018 Pacific Forest Rally to the high-octane drama of the Big White Winter Rally, he's left tire tracks of glory in his wake. But hold on tight, because this guest just isn't about speed and power. There's a mysterious allure to his acting career, where he's ventured into fault lines of emotion in Fault Line, and walked the line between dreams and reality in Dream Wedding. He summoned the wrath of God in epic tales, whispering chilling names in Don't Say Its Name, and navigated through the haunting landscapes of The Last of Us. From the secrets in the wilderness to the echoes of The Fortunate Son, he's left an incredible mark in every frame. You may have seen him on Tin Star, where the lines between law and chaos blur, or galloping through the heartland of emotions in Heartland. And for fans of the Wild West with the supernatural twist, he's saddled up in the realm of Wyatt Earp. So whether he's gripping the steering wheel at breakneck speeds or capturing our hearts with his magnetic performances, our guest today is a force to be reckoned with. Please join me in welcoming Pardeep Sooch. Thank you so much for your time and welcome to the show.
Oh my goodness. That was hands down. You're now on roster and on deck to be my professional hype man because that was amazing. I love that.
It's your resume, sir. I'm just
Oh,
happy we're able to connect.
oh man, no, thank you. Thank you so much for reaching out. It's been a wild trip.
You know, I gotta ask you, from film to racing, I mean, what initially drew you to the world of rally racing? This is so cool.
So actually, like this, I guess the answer kind of like answers both for film and rally. I have a pretty eclectic background. When I say eclectic background, it's kind of wild and different. Like I never ever would have seen myself in this position because I have a biochem degree and I work project management. And I like was in the corporate world for almost 10 years. Um, Loved my job. I always thought project management was like overpaid babysitting for the most part. But I hit a point where probably in like my mid 20s where I was just like, is this it? Is this really the hamster wheel that I'm going to be on until like I get off the wheel? And like when I get off the wheel, I'll be 55, ideally. Hopefully, my dad retired at 55. So the whole freedom 55 is like a thing, but maybe 65 or 70 at the rate that we're going.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, I was kind of like really like in it, just being like, man, I don't think I really want this, but it sustains my like quality of life, it's how I earn food. Um, so what I did is I made a personal challenge to myself, and I said every year, kind of like a New Year's resolution, but
Mhm.
every year I would challenge myself to do something different and something that was outside of my comfort zone that wasn't easily readily attainable. Um, but I could say I could actively like work throughout the course of the year and actually have an actionable thing of like this year I'm going to get my scuba license, or this year I'm going to be a rally racer. And one of the things was this year I want to be an extra in a movie.
Oh,
And that's like how acting kind of like snowballed. But to answer your first question for rally racing, my buddy Mark Staples and I, we're adventure brothers in the sense of anytime one of us has an idea, the other one's always there to like escalate the
I
idea,
love
and
that.
then like naturally I have to escalate that idea even more. Like one funny anecdote was we my foolish purchase of the year, I bought $1,500 stormtrooper replica suits. And what we did, we're like, it'd be really fun to go to a music festival in these things. Then be like, it'd be really fun if we wired these up with like EL wire and made them light up. So we basically had these
Oh,
giant Christmas light stormtrooper suits that became a festival hit. And then we would proceed to play like random games like space laser battles, we'd tape Roman candles to the blasters and then start shooting them at each other because we're still in armor, right? It was silly. Okay, I'm not saying that we were the smartest of the bunch, but it was something that we did for fun. And one of the things we did for fun was jump into rally. And Mark had a lock on a car, and I was like, absolutely, let's do this. So like we walked into the rally scene. The way it's kind of structured is you've got like open in production. Open meaning you can modify your car to any degree. And production is where you got to keep it base stock for the most part. You can gut things out. And then you've got 4-wheel drive and 2-wheel drive. And so we were at production 2-wheel, which was like the lowest of the low. Um, and it's hilarious because Mark and I like to escalate things and we like to have fun with it. So we thought, you know, what would be great is if we attached a sub to this thing, an amp, and put like bunny ear speakers on the roof so that we would blast tunes as we started racing. And so we made it a game where anytime we would do a race, we'd actually sit there and like scroll and be like, okay, this song, we got to start it now so that by the time the beat drops is when it's our go time. Because like rally is very, very like structured and regimented. You got to start it every single minute. And all the cars start exactly a minute apart from each other, which is so awesome. I'm like thinking back to it now. I'm like, I miss those days.
How was that received out of curiosity? You got the bunny ears and speakers on the car, wait for the bass to drop, and then you just smash that pedal. What is everyone else around you going through?
People went nuts. They loved it. And like we did end up getting a Spirit of the Rally award one year, but people look forward to it. I remember one group tried to like disqualify us. They're like, that's an illegal modification on your car. You're not a production car. I'm like, if anything, we're adding weight. We're not taking away weight. But no, it was a phenomenal stretch. But what was comical about it is like we started from very humble beginnings of we were the slowest car, the last car, but in our first race, we ended up getting first place because the first 2 cars ahead of us crashed.
Oh my God.
And so like we're like, okay, that's interesting. And so like the next race, the same thing kind of happens where we weren't dead last, but we were second last. There's only 3 cars in our category, and the car ahead of us crashed. So we are sitting on these 2 first place wins in our first year, which qualifies us for nationals. And so now we go to like nationals and we are a complete like farce to the sport. But it was, I'm like remembering this in real time. I like really thank you for bringing this back up to my brain. But like we were at nationals and like it's just Mark and I. We don't have a pit crew. We just have like our car, which is a 1986 VW Bug or a Jetta, a little rabbit. And we have a tarp and 4 wheels to hold that tarp down, and our jack stands and our tiny little toolbox that we keep in Mark's truck. Next to us is team like Subaru that have 4 of these like $100,000 cars, a full pit crew, and they're like prestigious drivers that are just basically just getting pampered the entire time because they're the ones racing. Versus like Mark and I are on our knees being like, how do we fix this clutch with like chicken wire because it's off?
Do you got the zip ties? You brought them, right?
Oh yeah, trust me, that thing was held together with dreams and zip ties. That's really it. It was amazing. It was an amazing.
But you guys came in first place. You have 2 first place trophies. You did go to nationals.
Yep.
I'll assume that we didn't, make the championship round in nationals. But hey,
Around we did.
really,
In our category, we managed to like really like dial it in, and it was like because like, we get better with every race. There's no replacement for seat times. Like so, like if you just spend more time in that seat, you will get better. Well, actually, what Mark and I did is that I had a VR headset and I had a little racing wheel, and we would sit in my apartment and literally just run rally tracks.
that is so cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
Now, when you were doing, you were co-driving, you were building these cars from, YouTube videos and schematics there.
Yeah.
How did you guys really communicate effectively when one person's in the track with these loudspeakers going, someone's off to the side, hey, you got a turn coming up? How did you guys do that? How did you get on the same page?
So we're actually jacked in. So like with our helmets, you actually plug into a central system that you're speaking to directly to your driver or your co-driver, and you can hear everything, right? I mean, there was one incident. If you ever get a chance to meet Mark, ask him about sunsets, and he'll tell you about the time that I almost killed us because I stopped looking at the documents and the papers for our turns. I was like, man, it's really nice. Hey, Mark, are you looking at the sunset? It's a beautiful sunset. And he's like, shut up, Deep, give me a ride. Tell me what turn is coming up next because I don't want to die.
So if you have to look back on these races and your accomplishments, and I love your adventure, buddy, I think it's a fabulous, fabulous thing. What is one of that moments that just stand out for you? Say, you know what, looking back on it, that's the one that is never going away in terms of a memory.
in terms of like,
What's your favorite memory from rally working with Mark?
oh man, honestly, I would think it would probably be one of our last laps before we like retired the car. Um, because we were dialed in, and it was just like one of those things where we ended up having a double blowout in our second last race. So we like blew all the tires on the right side, and we only had one spare tire. So we're like, okay, like what are we gonna do here? Let's like take the tire off the back on the good side and put it up front so we can. That's those
Yeah.
are our driving wheels, and then we'll like maybe like run with one flat. But like the rally community really just like comes together. They really rally together. So we ended up finding like another car that had a bolt pattern that was similar to ours, but it was like a slightly bigger tire. But they're like, listen, just take our tire. And so like
Yeah.
while we're waiting for the next heat to start, the community just gets together and everyone's in it for everyone else. There's no like cutthroat competition like you see in some of these movies where like with race cars, it's none of that. It's like it's legitimately an amazing community. And that to me was like a fantastic memory because then you're back in the saddle, you go for it. We ended up blowing out again and then crashing for the first
Oh,
time. For the first time, we ended up crashing because both the tires in the back just gave out. And that was on our last lap. And it was first off, it wasn't as scary as you would think. And it's funny because there's always a tow car that comes in at the very end just to like pick up stragglers, and you have a rally safe that's in your
mhm.
car. So it notifies everybody to let you know that, hey, this car is like hit certain G forces. They probably crashed. Check in on them. But no, they pulled us out, and we managed to like drive back to the final finish podium, which was
Oh,
at
that's so cool.
what was it, Big Red, I think it was Big Red, out in Kelowna. We like roll in with the music still going, but like it literally felt like one of those classic, like you roll in on this little junk heap, but the front is all kind of askew, the back tires are just rims, and you're still blasting like Flight of the Valkyries.
I love that. So I want to switch gears with you for a moment. Now, you had said that you started off acting in a very similar fashion, right? In Reaction Buddy, and you got a walk on or position as a background, and then
Yeah,
you kind of went off from there. So how's
yeah,
that journey looking? Like, you're a background actor now? You're in feature films, and you're doing these roles. What was that
yeah.
progression like?
It was honestly like it was surreal because when I first jumped onto the scene, like I had no idea where to start. And so I thought to myself, I'm like, let's look at ads on like on Google to say like,
Mhm.
well, acting Calgary. And I like come up across a bunch of agencies, and there were a couple like kind of like seedy agencies that like when I like approached them, they're like, well, you got to pay us $300 up front, and like we're gonna put you on our roster, and then we'll like get your headshots done, yada yada yada. And like something didn't sit right about that to
Right.
me. And then like I remember having another friend that my buddy Chad, he ended up getting on, I think it was Hell on Wheels. So he was a
Oh, nice.
consistent, like he was a background actor on Hell on Wheels. And he's like, I got an agent. Like I got this agent through a friend of a friend. So I decided to reach out to that agency, and they were phenomenal in the sense of like outright told me, he's like, listen, you should not be paying anybody anything. Like we work for you. You
Mhm.
don't work for us. We work for you. Um, and like gave me a breakdown of rates, gave me a headshot, or like told me to give them a headshot. And at that point, I like basically printed a headshot off of like a standard piece of paper off of my home computer.
Yep.
So the ink was still kind of drying on it. It wasn't a real headshot. Um, and what they said to me was kind of interesting. I guess like in today's time would kind of be a little bit abrasive, but back then it seemed like I didn't think anything of it. But she told me, she's like, like for what we film here in Alberta, there's no place for East Indians, because they're all period pieces, right? The
Right.
period pieces like westerns, and like frankly, East Indians didn't exist in that sort of time slot for like what Calgary was specifically targeted for.
Mhm.
She told me, she's like, you've got to look, you speak English, and you like we can use you for commercials. And so that's actually how I got my first start. Is I actually started in like an ATV financial commercial, because like I grew up like born and raised here in Calgary, so I did like the normal thing to do, which was like play hockey. I snowboarded. I love winter sports. I ice skate. I do all that stuff. And like for me, I guess like I was an anomaly to the industry because not a lot of East Indians go into this industry in Calgary. And that is like a cultural thing that I noticed because traditionally, even like my parents, they wanted me to be a dentist when I was growing up. And like I kind of missed the mark a little. But traditionally most like ethnic parents and most like parents or the children of immigrant parents, they want their children to stay away from the arts. So I never took an art class, never took a drama class. I was like completely in uncharted territory here with no support either. Cause like my parents like never believed it. They're like, this is nothing, like whatever, like go back to your day job. Like, and at that time I still was at my day job.
Right.
They just viewed it as a hobby. So they never really like balked at it. But because of that, like that's not just my parents. That's almost a lot of like people in the communities like experience that. So there's so few of us in the industry, right? So it's not for lack of the industry not being open to it. It's also, I guess, like, yeah, like parents and kids not being supported to go into these industries, realizing that no, there's actually a market here and that like you could like book work. And for a time, I was like one of the only East Indians like in Calgary that was on the scene. So people are like, we want to hit our diversity quota. Yes, yes, yes. There were some times where like it did feel like that. And like, do I feel marginalized because of it? Yes and no. Like I don't mind because it helped me build a resume very quickly. And it was almost a cheat code where I was booking something every month, which
Oh.
is like almost unheard of. And that was through commercials, modeling gigs, then like also being a background, then progressing from background to like silent on camera and being like an active extra. And then having like actual roles and speaking roles. And it like for me, I didn't fathom that I could be on this fast track. Um, I guess like my break really happened when I booked a Kleenex commercial, a Travel Alberta commercial, and I think it was like a milk commercial, all within like a 3 week span. And so it was just like busy, busy, busy. All of a sudden, you're in the union now, and from that, like ACTRA has been phenomenal. Like the team at ACTRA Alberta, I know that I'm not sure if you're associated or affiliated with ACTRA in Ontario, but we are like kind of sisters in a way. Um, have been like a phenomenal resource in like making sure that like I'm taken care of and like giving me opportunities to like really bolster my like acting ability because at that point in time I was like, oh man, like shit's getting real now.
Mm.
And I don't think I belong here because like I'm in rooms and like places where people are like, I went to Vancouver Film School. I did this. I took drama in this. I'm like, man, I have a biochem degree and I don't I've like maybe the only experience I've ever had on camera was being on camera. I've
Mhm.
never acted otherwise. So like imposter syndrome really, really set in. And in all honesty, like it's still something that hasn't gone away. Like for you to reach out to me to talk to me, I'm like, why me? And it was funny. I was just talking to my wife earlier today. Legitimately, I asked the same thing. I'm like, she's like, this is a big deal. This is huge. Like you're getting interviewed. Like you're having like these are like cool like little accomplishments. And in my brain, I'm thinking, is it like, is this even real? Am I being punked? Are you punking me, Chris?
No, no, no. Thank you for the reference of my age as well, but no. So when you look at these roles, and I know you're kind of fighting yourself with these imposter syndromes from time to time. Outside of that, what do you feel would make a role challenging more than another?
Oh man. Honestly, it's like the role is what you make it. If that makes sense. Like
Mhm.
for what where I found, I guess a degree of success is I didn't actually care. And I don't want this to sound like
No.
in a bad way, but I see so many people that will like jump into a role and then like really, really strive to like build this character up from like the ground up, come up with a backstory. And like that 100% is like some people's method. And like now I'm learning that, oh, that is like a legitimate thing to do, like build this character up and then portray this character for like your audition and like on camera. I went into it because at the time, like I was super busy, like with work, with my own
Mhm.
work. I was like I had like side hustles and like other things, and like acting was just like this small little piece, to the point where there were some things, because I was working in Edmonton at the time and my agency was here in Calgary. So I was driving back and forth almost every week, um, just to like either get like certain opportunities. And there were sometimes where I'm like, I really just don't want to drive back. And like, I don't want to do this audition. I try to turn down the audition,
Yeah.
and my agent would be like, no, you're not. You're going to do this. And so I'd walk into the audition room. I mean, a good example would be Winona Earp. When I got that, the uh the call was for like someone that like walked out of a Zara ad, like super like preppy, like dressed real nice.
Mhm.
I came in looking like Marty McFly because that's how I generally dress. And like I didn't care. I was chewing gum. I'm like, I really just don't want to do this, but I'm only doing this because my agent wants me to. So I approached it with just me. I acted as me. I didn't act as anyone else. I didn't make it hard for myself. I made it very easy. And like I got called out midway through the audition, because like the audition, they're like, you got to hit on this girl,
Mhm.
right? And just be like, be cool and suave or whatever. And I'm like chewing gum and just doing like whatever, like reading the lines. And it was like almost like also impromptu. So it's just like a lot of improv. And they called me. I was like, are you chewing gum? I'm like, yeah. I mean, if I'm cool and hitting on someone, I want to be chewing gum, right? And they're like, please don't chew gum. You're not that's a big faux pas. And also that's advice to everyone. Do not chew gum in an audition. um, but I think it was that sort of attitude that got me the part, because I stuck out enough from everyone else that was trying to force themselves to be something and making it harder for themselves. So at that point, I really took this like approach of just be yourself, because 90% of the vibe when casting directors are looking at you, like they're like, do you fit the look at first? And if you fit the look, then they start looking at your ability of like, can you actually act? And that's how they'll like narrow it down. Um, but like in some cases, like if someone comes in with like a stellar performance, they'll change the role for that stellar performance. So that's not to say like what worked for me worked for me. What works for you will work for you. So there's no silver bullet to that. But
No, I
for me,
love that. It's go in with you, be yourself, bring the character to it. But sometimes we stand in our own way when we're trying
Mhm.
to create characters or book work.
Yeah, yeah.
So when we
And it
talk, sorry, please
oh,
go ahead.
no, go for it.
No, I was just going to say how do you get out of that headspace? How do you know when to say, hey, I get to be Pardeep and bring what I want to it versus trying to create something?
Hmm. It's it's interesting because I think when you're starting off in the scene, you're trying so hard to impress people that like it is definitely a hit or miss thing, because it's not a I can just be myself right now. You're really trying to impress these like people, and now that you're not in the same room and everything's done via self tape, it like becomes even harder for you to like sit there and like what normally would have taken maybe 5 minutes of you stepping into a room, being judged, and then like getting certain feedback, which is great, and then leaving, you now don't get that feedback, and you'll sit there for like 2 3 hours and just consistently just be like, did I do it better? I could do it better. I could do it better. And you get in your head about it. um I don't know, there's like a, a point in time where you tend to just stop caring, and you realize, listen, like this is not worth my time anymore. If they like me, they're going to like me. If they don't like me, they don't like me. And I think when you hit that point in your career where you realize that enjoy the process, and when you stop enjoying the process is when like things need to change, because if you're stressing yourself out, it's not right for you. Like I hit a point where one of the best bits of advice that was given to me was like, acting is about collecting failure. So
Oh,
like you're going to get lots of auditions. collect Collect the no's and take every no with like pride. I mean, like, you know what, I stepped into this a little out of my comfort zone, and I did it. I enjoyed the process of acting on the audition. Like the big part of an actor is like doing the audition. And
mhm.
if you find like fun in it, in terms of just like, I get to play someone else and be someone else and do that audition, then it like, and you enjoy it, that's great. If you don't enjoy it, that's where you really need to like reframe your state of mind. I mean, like, listen, something needs to change. Like, I'm not enjoying these auditions. Like, yeah, it's fun. That's a good question.
So while I'm on this roll of good questions with you, then what
Yeah.
what is something that you would say people tend to misunderstand about you the most?
Oh man. Okay, so in terms of like you warned me about this. What you warned me this question might stump me, that the question would stump. It's hard to say. I think people think like I do a lot, and I think what it is about like capacity.
Mhm.
Um, and I think the biggest thing that yeah, and actually this will be a good answer. Biggest thing people misunderstand about me is my capacity because I do a lot, and I think like one thing that I'm not sure if you knew or like dug up in your sleuthing, but like I do a thing called One Big Jam. And like what One Big Jam is like we bring together all the city's like musicians under one roof and we make them like make amazing music. And like I'm starting to build or help facilitate building this like artist community in the city. And we just opened up a space, which is huge. But that's like occupying a lot of my time. And I also run my own like media business. So I do photos and videos. I'm running that on the side. And then acting is like another thing, and I'm also involved in so many different groups, and that's like not to say of like having to be a good husband and like a family man, and like it's
Yeah.
just there's a lot on my plate and I try to do everything. But I think what I do tend to do and I make a point of is like I if I'm giving you my attention, I'm giving you 100% of my attention, and that might mislead you in thinking that oh like he's must have all the time in the world because he's spending all this time with me and talking to me and giving me like thoughtful responses, or like at least like spending the time to like build this with me and like spend
Mhm.
time with me. But really it's like I'm burnt out on a schedule where it's like I live and die by my schedule now, and there's like maybe a 5 minute block where I'm like okay now I'll like I'll take some rest. And like what's thankful is like my wife is actually a singer, and so we kind of operate on the same like artist schedules where by the time like 11 p.m. hits is when our days are done and we can actually just sit down and be with each other
Mhm.
and like watch a movie or hang out and like stay up until 3 a.m. and then like get back on the grind, and like she's constantly working and then I'm constantly on the grind and we're always kind of doing all these things. But I think people misunderstand the my capacity, and so I am open. I am very like, and I always will strive to be accessible and open. So if people had questions, they can always just reach out to me and ask me questions, and I will like constantly like be there to respond. I want people to have my attention or my knowledge, but sometimes people take that for granted. And I've had that a couple of times where people are like, man, like I haven't talked to you or I haven't seen you or you haven't gotten back to me in this. I'm like, man, in due time.
I've been slammed. I'm getting there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Pardeep, I have time for one last question for you today, and it's
Yeah.
what makes you smile?
Oh man. Um, cool experiences make me smile. I've always told myself, and I live by this. I don't want to make money to buy nice things or fancy things. I want to make money to cater experiences for like my friends and those around me and family. Like drop everything and go to Disneyland. I'm all for it. Buy stormtrooper suits and shoot each other with fireworks. Here for it. um, that makes me smile. It's like creating stories and crafting stories. It's one thing to act in a story, but it's another thing to make your own story, and that to me like makes me so happy.
That's amazing. Well, as I said, sir, I really appreciate your time. That was my last question for you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Everyone out there, remember to smile to inspire and have a fantastic day. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for that, Chris. This has been a treat.